So we're up to Charm House. We're in the 1950s with Don Schreckengoss. Last video we looked at the rhythm shape. We should have looked at Charm House first, but because Charm House uses rhythm in the form of Dura-Print, I wanted to get rhythm out of the way and then backtrack and come now to Charm House. Of the videos that I'm making for you, this is going to be the most complicated because Charm House was used in so many different forms. We have the original version of Charm House, we have the Applique, we have Dura-Print, and then we're going to look at Studio Hollowware and Dura-Print lines later. Charm House was also used with decalware. So let's just start with the beginning. And we're in 1949 when Charm House is being developed. And it was made as an exclusive for China Glass distributors out of New York. Now the flatware is a wide rim shape. It's rather thin. And the hollowware was given this mushroom shape. And the initial treatments, they were all decalware for China Glass distributors. It was released in 1950, and we have a letter here, a copy of a letter from China Glass distributors to Homer Laughlin, and they're talking about the shapes and pricing and advertising for it, and they have some treatments here. Pink Magnolia, Cinnamon Tree, Ming Glory, Lyric. This happens to be Pink Magnolia. And this one is Lotus High. The flatware will be marked with a special decal marking, and that says Charm House, Lotus High, Made in USA. So there's no mention of Homer Laughlin because this wasn't exclusive for China Glass distributors. They had other distributing companies that sold it for them as well. The one thing I wanted to note on this letter was on the second page. It says S.E. Fry, General Manager. So that's Ed Fry who requested this. And in Don Schreckengoss' notes, when he talks about this shape, initially he calls it the Fry shape, and that's why. Because it was Ed Fry who asked for it, and then later on they decide on Charm House. The gravy fast stand here was decorated by Pearl China, but I wanted to show that because the fast stands are somewhat rare. So we'll look at a couple pieces of advertising. Let me turn this around. And we have this dated May 8th, 1950. It's for CH100, Pink Magnolia, which is our sugar and creamer. And it's talking about our pound rates. We looked at the pound sterling catalogs last time, and it gives pricing. But this is our full assortment for Charm House in its standard initial form. And when I say that, I'm talking about the rim shape. We've got cup saucers, different sizes of plates, deep plates, cereal soups. That one is going to look like this, the mushroom shape. It was picked up and used in rhythm, so you'll find a lot of them with a rhythm marking, but this is a Charm House shape that rhythm picked up. And then we have the fruit cup, several sizes of platters and nappies, the casserole, the sauceboat FS fast stand, which we just looked at, decorated by Pearl China, the sugar, the creamer, the demi-tasse coffee cups and sauce, the teapots and salt and peppers. The demi-tasse cups and saucers, I've never seen those in person, so I think those are probably more rare than the gravy fast stand. Then we have another one, again, May 8th, 1950. This is CH106 Lotus High, which is our treatment here. This treatment would go on to be used on rhythm, so you'll probably find it on the plain round coupe shape rhythm more than you will on Charm House. And we see the same assortment. It's a little bit, it's not as expensive as our Pink Magnolia. And this is some concept art for brochures, which I've never seen one, and probably not going to see one because we have Homer Laughlin mentioned in this concept art, so I'm sure that these brochures were never made since Homer Laughlin's name is generally not associated with any of the Charm House. And here's the full assortment, including that little demi-tasse cup and saucer. And this was for Lotus High. And there's another one, styled for the modern hostess. It's made of like tissue paper. And here's a treatment list for Charm House with the initial treatments. There's only a few of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of them. And we see that like Pink Magnolia, Cinnamon Tree, Ming Glory, those were all initially used with Charm House. They go on to be used on other shapes as well. Lotus High, it looks like it started off for CH102, but then was modified to become CH106. And then we have 3 treatments. This one comes from Nautilus Eggshell, that one comes from Republic, and that one comes from Georgian Eggshell. And here's some advertising from trade journals. This is May of 1950, showing the pink magnolia on Charm House, again with our rim-shaped flatware and our mushroom hollowware. And then there's a second one. I want to show them side by side in a moment. And this one's Lotus High. Again, this one is from 1950. This is April 50. But one interesting thing in these advertisements involve the creamers, because they're distinct from one another. They have this sort of tall, stretched appearance. This one's got a different lip, and it looks like it has a wider body. And both of these, I don't know if that's just because of the artistic's license with this, or if they actually used a photograph to make these ads. But the creamer you're going to find is going to be a short version. Again, I've never seen this particular style, and I'm not sure if there was any remodeling done, but I just wanted to note that. So, a couple advertising slicks. There's Lotus High, and there's Lyric. And this is a copy of some concept art for the Charm House coffee pot. This piece did not go into production, unfortunately, but it has a slightly different look to it than our more familiar mushroom hollowware. The other hollowware has a top-heavy look, and this is reversed in the form of the coffee pots. But yeah, it didn't go into production, and that is a shame. So that's a little bit about the initial Charm House with its decaled version and its wide rim flatware. It only lasts to about 1952 or 1953 or so. So it's only a couple years. But even though that was discontinued, they made use of the hollowware in several other different forms, most notably Dura-Print, which we see here. So our flatware for Dura-Print is Rhythm. And all these pieces in the back are the plain round coupe shape Rhythm. And to coordinate, the hollowware for Charm House was decorated in solid color glazes. The sauce boats were picked up from Rhythm. They did not use the gravy fast stand anymore. So before we get into this too much, I want to reference a book. And this is The Collector's Encyclopedia into Homer Laughlin China by Joanne Jasper. And this is from 1993. This was printed by Collector Books, and they are now out of business. So if you want to get a copy of this book, you have to look at like Amazon.com or eBay. I'm sure you can find one. But this was the first book devoted to Homer Laughlin dinnerwares that didn't center around Fiesta. And I want to turn to the Dura-Print section. Let's see. Okay, so this is page 162. And you see here, this is some Dura-Print from a Montgomery Ward's catalog, showing the printed flatware on Rhythm and the solid colored hollowware using Charm House. So, regarding the Dura-Print designs, it says, according to Don Schreckengoss, who created the name, the process known at HLC as Dura-Print arrived there from Argentina. One of his students saw the technique of printing on China while he was in South America and brought it to Don's attention. He also had photographs which showed how the process worked. It goes on to say, it made use of an inflatable balloon or bladder which was pressed against the piece to be decorated when air pressure was applied to it. So the Rhythm shape with its coupe shape body was perfect for this method of this rubber stamp coming down, this bladder if you will, and printing on to the bisqueware, and then it would be given a clear glaze. So Dura-Print comes from around 1952. And we see several patterns here. We see this tulip pattern. That one back there is called Trellis. That one's Starbright, I believe. It's a popular pattern. The plaids were made in several different colors. This is a brown-green combination, but there's yellow-brown combination. There's solid green, I believe. There's also a black. This is called Cinderella. And it has the Dura-Print diamonds on it in blue, and then it has a decal in the center. There's also a Frolic, and you can find this without the decals in the center as well. So your solid colored charm house would be made to go with the decorated flatware. So in the case of, let's say, confetti, which was made for Montgomery Ward's, or polka dot it's sometimes called, it would get the black charm house to coordinate. Our dark blue tulip over here would be given a rhythm sauce boat in cobalt. This is not the same cobalt that was used for Fiesta, by the way. Something like the two-tone effect with this plaid, with the green and brown, you could either get green or brown hollowware. So let's look at a couple Dura-Print papers. This one is dated 1954, and it's a little memo by Homer Laughlin talking about the decorating process, and it talks about the assortment. So it says Dura-Print items, decorated rhythm flatware, or rhythm shape, and it has the saucers and the plates and the coupe soup. It's got the nappy and the platters and the pickles, or the sauce boat liner. And then it says the Dura-Print items in solid colored glazes are the teacup sugar, creamer, casserole, cereal, soup, salt, pepper, teapot, and the regular sauce boat, which is picked up from Rhythm. And here's a little advertisement for Frolic. This is the other version. We saw Cinderella over here with the blue diamonds and the decal in the center, and then this is Frolic with the blue diamonds and the spiral decal. And this is pattern number RU50. The R stands for rhythm, the U stands for underglaze. This is some concept art for Highland plaid in black using Charm House. And this is the interior concept art. It shows the rhythm water jug. Do not expect to find a rhythm water jug in any of these Dura-Print lines. It would be nice to find a black one, but and then it shows some different color combinations on the bottom. So it could be single color or it could be two colors. And here's a black and white advertisement for Highland plaid, again, Charm House hollowware. Here's our green and brown using dark green hollowware, Dundee plaid. Daybreak. This is an interesting advertisement because it shows this as Daybreak. It's brown, and it uses brown Charm House hollowware, but on Montgomery Ward's, I think it's Montgomery Ward's, they sell it, they call it Chanticleer. So here again, we've seen this before in previous videos where a pattern can have multiple names depending on who's selling it. A couple copies of advertisement slicks. This is polka dot print. Again, Montgomery Ward's called this one confetti. And there's calico. This, I wish I had an example to show you. It's dark blue and yellow is the print. And so you could get either dark blue or yellow hollowware. And this is trellis. And it says, let's see, this exciting new Dura-Print pattern in blue spruce green and chestnut brown adds a gay note of spring the year round to America's smartest tables. You have to forgive me sometime. I'm trying to read through a screen. And this is the trellis plate here with our green and brown. And finally, dogwood, an advertising slick. So that's a little bit about Charm House and its use with Dura-Print. We're going to come back to Dura-Print in a minute when we look at Studio. So next we need to look at Applique. Now Applique is a special screen print that gives this raised enamel effect. Flatware comes from Brittany, and it's usually done on the rim. And the hollowware, of course, comes from Charm House. In this case, well, we need to, hold on, let's not talk about that yet. Let's look at this first. I'm getting ahead of myself. I told you this is a complicated subject. So, here we have Yellow Daisy. And that's what you see on this Charm House teapot and the Charm House shakers. And this, you can see the rim. This is the Brittany dinner plate, and we have a Brittany saucer. So, in general, this is where I was getting ahead of myself. In general, all the pieces are going to be decorated, but that's not always the case. This says, Homer Laughlin's new decorating technique perfected after years of research to develop designs resistant to acids and dishwashing detergents. The colorful raised enamel effect, usually found only on expensive china, make the yellow daisy pattern truly unique in its field of moderately priced dinnerware. And we have a little advertising slick here showing yellow daisy again. And again, yellow daisy with a brochure showing the Brittany flatware and the Charm House hollowware. We can see the full assortment in the inside. And there weren't very many applique treatments. You see one on this 36's bowl, and they're usually multicolored like this. So you have 3 or 4 different glazes at work. So there was one piece of paper I wanted to, here we go. No, that's Dura-Print. Here's what I wanted to show. Okay, this is from 1954, and it's talking about applique with colored glaze hollowware. So this is what I was saying before. Most of the time, everything's going to be decorated, but you do have instances where you've got solid colored hollowware. So it's specifying treatment numbers A200Y and A201DG, and these are both making use of the A100 pattern, which is yellow daisy. But in the case of A200Y, applique, Brittany flatware, yellow rhythm sauce boats, Charm House yellow color cups, balance of hollowware, RK, that's run of kiln, stainless steel 165 mesh metal screen, that's the pattern, number 1832, hot color on all flatware on the Brittany shape, and 4 colors, green, brown, yellow, tan, and if we look, you will see all 4 of those colors in there. Cups and hollowware, yellow glazed. For the 201DG, you can have the applique treatment of Brittany flatware rhythm. It's the same thing, except it's dark green instead of yellow. So in the case of yellow daisy, you could have all your hollowware be the same as the flatware with the yellow daisy, or your hollowware can be yellow, or your hollowware can be dark green. So you're getting 3 different lines out of this. So that's enough about applique. Let's move on. Get my papers here. Now, Charm House was used in other ways. We have some little brochures here that show this Serenade series of dinnerware. It's funny, they use the same Serenade marking that they did from the Serenade pastel line from '39. But this is a mixed set. We've got this coupe-shaped flatware. The sugar and cream are a Triumph, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we will. And then the teacup is Charm House. So these date from, I believe, the early 1960s, but we'll get to those eventually. But it's yet another use of Charm House. And we see Charm House here from 1962 in an advertisement. This is using a rim shape and color tones of mocha and persimmon, accented by a persimmon band, and we see a Charm House teacup being used. And another use is going to be these 2 lines, Lady Greenbrier and Lady Stratford, uses mainly Nautilus flatware. We've got a rhythm sauce boat, we've got Charm House covered casserole, Charm House sugar, Charm House creamer. And one more thing we'll show with respect to Charm House, and that's this, Desert Lily. This is concept art for a brochure. Rather common line, but it's not Dura-Print. It's decalware on rhythm that uses chartreuse hollowware. And we've got some drawings of the interior, what the brochure should look like. Okay, so that's enough about Charm House for now. We're going to move on to Studio, because the Dura-Print lines continue into the early 1960s. However, Charm House is abandoned by then, and they favor this parabolic shape, Studio. And there are only a couple pieces made in Studio. This is the covered sugar, the creamer, the teacup and saucer. This comes from the collection of Mark LeCain, the cup and saucer. And then the teapot, which until recently I never knew existed. I knew it had been modeled, but I didn't know that it went in production. I found this not too long ago at an old antique shop in Decatur, Alabama, of all places. It has a rather odd opening and odd lid to it. Undecorated. I wish it had a treatment. So the studio shape is around 1957 or so. And I really didn't want to talk about studio too much today, but since we're on Dura-Print, I kind of want to mention it, because we'll start with this piece in the back. Now this is a Dura-Print platter. It's called Greek Key. I think it's called Diana in some cases. And we have our Dura-Print marking on it, by the way. This is 1960. So all our Dura-Print lines are going to have these markings on it. I don't know if I showed you one or not. Here's one from 1955. So your early 50s are going to have Charm House Hollowware. Your late 50s and 60s are going to have Studio. Let me make some room here real quick. Because we were talking about the bladder technique of decorating these wares. But when we look at some of these pieces from the 60s, the very early 60s, the late 1950s, some of them are very detailed. We've got this shadowing effect going on. We've got a lot of detail, as opposed to something from the early 50s, which is somewhat crude in comparison. Here's one from the early 50s. It's the yellow and brown plaid. It's dated 1953. Our rose piece is dated 1960. So again, you've got a very simple pattern and something a little more complex. Here we have this farm scene in green, so it would have gotten the dark green hollowware, and it is dated 1955. We have this black farm scene, which is far more detailed. I mean, there's a lot going on here. We've got an orchard at the bottom, we've got a rooster and hen, we've got a man plowing the farm, we've got a barn, we've got a man harvesting, there's a farmer and his wife, there's storm clouds, there's cows, there's a scarecrow in the field, there's a church, there's a dove, there's a cow, more storms, somebody picking oranges or something up there, schoolhouse. I mean, this is a very detailed pattern. We look at the back stamp on this, it's 1959. So the reason why I'm comparing these is because it seems unlikely that these very detailed pieces from the late 1950s and early 1960s were made with some type of rubber stamp or a bladder. When you've got something very simple, and I hate to use the word crude, but in comparison to something like this, which is extremely detailed, this is very crude. This is reminiscent of underglazed transferware that we saw with the Liberty shape, as is this piece. This looks more like transferware than it does some type of bladder stamp. Now, looking back at the Greek key piece, so I'm going to put this book aside. I'm going to look at another book. This is Homer Laughlin, Decades of Dinnerware by Replacements Limited. And there are two things I want to look at. First, I need to go to the hearth side section. I don't remember the page. Hearth side. Here we go. All right, at the bottom, they have these pictures, and the caption reads, "Screen printing plates at the Homer Laughlin factory." And what we see here on this side, we've got some unglazed ware, and we have this lady using a silk screen. And what she's doing is she's using like a squeegee to press the glaze through the screen, which has the pattern, to print the ware underneath. And here we see the finished version. There's the empty screen, there's our empty ware, and there's our finished ware, which is going to have to be glazed. Now, I don't know if you can see in the picture or not, but this is Greek key. This is this pattern. So I bring this up because we have to rethink what it means for something to be Dura-Print. Because clearly in the late 1950s and early 1960s, Dura-Print is no longer this rubber bladder stamp process. Here it's silkscreen. There was something else I wanted to look at. Studio. Okay. Here we have the studio shape. This is pink magnolia. If you find pink magnolia, it's going to have the Dura-Print back stamp as well. And here we see an actual piece of pink magnolia. And it says, "Woman screen printing the pink magnolia pattern at the Homer Laughlin factory. And that caption, that's absolutely right. Both captions are spot on. So again, we're not dealing with a rubber bladder. We are dealing with silkscreen. And I suspect on some of these, it may actually be transfer wear when we look at these very detailed rose patterns. And here's another one on the bottom. It is possible that this is based on some type of photographic technique. I've seen that before. I'm just not 100% sure. The point is that I think that there needs to be some more investigation into how these were done. Again, we look at this piece in the back with this very detailed blue daisy treatment. That looks like transfer wear to me. But it might not be. It might be something else. Now these others from the 60s, like this one, this is from, oh, this is 58, late 50s. That looks like a traditional Dura-Print treatment. And speaking of the bladder decoration, you wouldn't be able to do it in hollowware, though you could do silkscreen on hollowware. And we see that with Brittany all the time. And that may be why we're using Brittany sauce boats here. So that's going to be it for today. Yeah, Charm House, China Glass Distributors, Dura-Print, Applique, Decals, Serenade Studio. There's a lot going on with Charm House. So I hope this all made sense. That's going to be it for today. Next time we'll look at Cavalier.